Welcome back, everyone. It's Claire and her books, and it is time for August TBR wrap up. Just August wrap up? August wrap up. I have been wanting to make this video since like August 5th. I swear, because the first two books that I read together, I always have two going at the same time because I'm such a mood reader. I just cannot always do the same vibe every day until a book is finished. But the first two were 5-star reads, and my poor coworkers have heard more than they want to hear about books that they're not trying to read. Please check trigger warnings if that is necessary for you to do. I will link a website down below. Book number 1. I'm going to get my DNF over with. There's 2, but 1 physical book I did not finish, so let's get her out of the way. It is Our Hideous Progeny by C. McGill. The problem is the audience, not the book. I don't like classic literature, and I feel bad saying that because I respect it and I want to like it. I do not like it. I keep trying it, and it is always a hard pass. I wanted to like this because it is inspired by Frankenstein, and I hated Frankenstein so much, and I wanted to love it so much. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I didn't make it that far. I made it to page 70 or 80. And I think people would really like this book if they like classic literature. It was very, very slow for me. Very slow. Nothing that is described as the plot has happened at all. And I understand needing to build things up before you really get going sometimes. But it's too much. Like, I cannot wait till page like 120 for the action to start. I have ADD. I'm so sorry. If you like classic literature, pick this book up. C. McGill's Scottish author, and they seem like they're a talented author, but it's just not for me. I cannot get past the pacing, and I can't get past just the general lack of interest that I had. So I told myself I would be good about not finishing books that I don't like. Life is too short. I have too many books I want to read. So out she goes. I guess now is when I will just tell you that I did not finish Dracula. And it makes me want to cry. I wanted to know the whole entire story of Dracula so badly. The first part I was okay with, where he's at Dracula's place and he's like, something's fishy here. I think he wants to suck my blood. That part was fine for me. And then we go to the letters. And there's so many letters. There's so many letters. There are so many letters. And I just couldn't. I couldn't do it. So DNF'd after, I don't know, a few hours. Anyways, I'm just gonna find a summary video. One of those videos that's like, I read this so you didn't have to. Which I've never understood that, because why would you want that? But here I am, about to look one up, so I guess I get it now. Okay. This one I'm not going to talk about much because I'm going to do a book of the month video. And it was very hard to decide what was the book of the month because I had four 5-star books. That's almost half of them, guys. So it was a hard decision. But due to the number of times that my jaw dropped, and due to the number of times where I had to close the book and just think, my brain wheels were working so hard during this book. I felt like that was enough reason to edge this one above the others by a smidgen. And that is If an Egyptian Can Speak English by Noor Naga. If I ever meet this woman, I'm gonna feel so naked and exposed because she clearly can analyze people's psyche very well. This book is a dark, experimental prose literary fiction romance, I think is how I would describe this. I think it's just its own genre. However, this is not like sweep you off your feet romance. This is like they're doing the thing and then things go south and it's toxic and it's twisty. You're inside both of their heads and it just keeps going further and going further and going further. And you're invested even though neither of them are really very likable. This book took me to another planet. See, I already forgot that I wasn't going to say much about this. Basically, this just touches on so many topics so bluntly. The story is being told by thoughts, the inner thoughts of the characters, and we're just bouncing back between their brains, and it's fascinating, and I've never seen a book that was written that way before, and I really liked it. There are no paragraphs in this book. It's weird. There are like riddles at the beginning of each little section. There are no there are no chapters. It's pretty much like that is a chapter, but there are never paragraphs, which I imagine some people hate. I loved it because I was so in it that it's just like, don't distract me with the indentation. Don't even worry about it. Just keep going. So good. This book is amazing. If you love people who are not afraid to talk about the real ugly side of human emotion and issues with society and relationships and all that, definitely try this, because Noor Naga is fearless, and this book is going to stick with me forever. Next up is the Studio Ghibli book of the month. I did Kiki's Delivery Service this month. It's written by Eiko Kadono, and it's translated by Emily Balistreri. This book was translated from Japanese. It's cute, you know? It was better than Howl's Moving Castle. My new understanding is that cozy fantasy is often very slow and drawn out. Can anybody confirm or deny that for me? Because I'm gonna be sad if that's the general truth, because cozy fantasy sounds really great. But if it's that, I'm not gonna like it. Anyways, that's why somebody said Howl's Moving Castle is so gosh dang flippin' slow. Is this book life-changing? No. Is it cute? Yeah. So Kiki's Delivery Service is basically about a young witch. When witches turn 13, they can either decide to stay at home and not really pursue witchcraft, or if they want to be a witch, they have to leave for a year, find a way to support themselves in a different town, and not come back home for a year. They can come back exactly a year from when they leave. I think they can stay at that point, but they usually go back to the town that they established themselves in and live their lives there. So Kiki is leaving town on her 13th birthday, well, around her 13th birthday. She's leaving with her little sidekick cat, Gigi, who is super cute and sarcastic. And his sense of humor doesn't always land in the book, but they did a better job in the movies. So they leave, they find a town that they like, and they learn that there are no witches there, so they're all good to try and start a business. And it's just sort of a story about the journey of Kiki learning how to be of use in a town where she doesn't know anybody, and they haven't had a witch there for a very long time, so people are kind of weirded out by her. And it's just her and Gigi trying to make it until she can go back home to say hi to her parents in a year. And it was very cute, it was very sweet, and I think it's worth reading. I probably won't ever reach for it again, but I could recommend this. Like, it's a good book. You guys are not ready for this one. Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. Holy moly. I just love this book so much. I mostly read this book in one day. I think I had read 50 pages, and the rest I read in a single sitting. I could not be bothered. Don't talk to me. Leave me alone. Go away. Goodbye. Isabel is a Mexican-American author, and this is a speculative fiction novel about it's a vampire book. It's a vampire book, but it's also a romance. And I don't read romance. It's not appealing to me for the most part. If it's like a dark, weird, psychological romance, sure. But the typical romance, not my cup of tea. But this romance is so good, and I just really think that the balance she struck between the rest of the plot and the romance was perfection. So we are following Nestor and Nena, our two protagonists. It's a dual point of view story. We're in both their heads. These are two people that grew up together on the ranch, and they have loved each other for a while, but Nena's parents would not be happy with her marrying Nestor at all. But they're inseparable. They do everything together. They sneak out and go off together all the time just to explore and be with each other. And they do that again one night, and they find a creature, and things go awry, shall we say. And things just escalate from there. I don't want to give everything away, but The prose in this book are so good. They're not anything too crazy, but the prose are very easy to follow. But there are some just beautiful descriptions that just make you stop and, that was nice. Isabel is also really good at just slipping in these tiny details, but if you're paying attention, she'll slip them in again from the other character's point of view, way down the road, in a different way. But the way it connects just explains even more about their thought process. It's kind of hard to describe. You just have to read it and you'll see what I mean. But I love when authors do that because it's just so impressive how they can keep track of the whole story and continue to tie it together in different ways throughout the whole book. It's amazing to me. I really like the characters in this book. I like all of the characters. Not I like all the characters, there's some like bad guys, but all of the characters are good. I like all of the good characters. That's a pretty big task for me. I'm not a people person. So for me to like all of the characters that are not straight up villains, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. This book just kind of has it all. There's colonialism, there's feminism, there's sexism, there's vampires, there's romance, there's stunning settings. Stunning settings. There's humor, family dynamics. It's everything. Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This was alright. It was okay. Not life-changing. It was a very slow start for me. I really only finished this because one of my good friends absolutely loves this book. I love the representation in it. That was pretty solid. And there are a couple of characters that I really like, but the character building for me was not layered enough, especially with a couple of them. A couple of the characters, I don't understand like who they are, where they came from, so why do I really care? You know what I mean? The setting was really cool. I liked that part. I especially like that we're on a ship with two of the characters for a while. That's a really nice change of pace. I think things were a little bit difficult for me to keep track of, which very well could be another, the problem is the audience, not the book thing. But I've just seen when there are different groups of society that are broken down in multiple different ways, I think it's really important that the author is good at laying them out and introducing them in a way that makes it easier to keep track of for the reader. And that's a big task, but I've seen people do it. So when people don't, I'm like, I know it can be done. And it didn't happen for me here. I was pretty confused. I don't even know how to describe what's happening in this book. I'm not going to try to describe this book. I would just read the blurb that's on the back, which I thought was very vague before I read it and didn't really know what I was getting into, and I still kind of feel the same after reading it. I definitely will not be picking up the sequels to this. I want to know what happens, but I'll just ask my friend who read it because I don't want to know that badly. Say Nothing. This is such a good book. This is an amazing book. This is nonfiction, but hold up. It reads like fiction because this guy is a genius. This is written by Patrick Radden Keefe, who was a journalist, and it shows. First of all, this is a little bit of a whopper, but this whole part of the back of the book, like all of this is all just like reference index stuff. This book kind of starts off in two different areas that slowly become entwined. This is about the war in Ireland, in Northern Ireland. We're following key people in the IRA as one part of the story, and we are following a woman and her family. The mom ends up being taken. We don't know by whom till very late in the book, and she has 10 kids that she was taken from. The dad's already passed. The whole book, you just kind of come back to, you see her name thrown into things, and you're like, is this when we find out what happened? And yeah, you don't find out for a long time, but it is connected. And there are so many parts of this book where it's like a twist in a thriller, and it's huge. And you're like, you will gasp several times because it keeps happening. Like once you're on the last third of the book, it is just like, this is real life. This is real life. This book is crazy. This book is perfection in my mind. 5-star read. Not for a single page was I bored. And it's a historical nonfiction that's over 400 pages. That's crazy. That is absolute nonsense. How does he do it? I don't know. I don't know how he does it, but this book literally killed my highlighter. Like, I got out a new highlighter for this. Girl did not make it. RIP highlighter. The book starts off by explaining that Boston College has a lot of rare and expensive documents about Irish history, because this college was started to educate the Irish population that was coming over during the famine. And it starts out with 2 Belfast detectives showing up at Boston College and taking away tape recordings of people who are in the IRA, talking about everything that happened, everything they did, everything that was done to them. These tapes were supposed to be kept secret until after they passed, and then they would be released, because if you tried to tell your story of what happened during the war, you would probably get killed by other IRA members or just supporters, because that would make you a tout, which is their version of a snitch. Then it tells you about the kidnapping of Jean McConville, who was a mother of 10, who disappeared from the apartment complex one day and was never seen again. And then you meet a couple of sisters who became key members of the IRA, and you follow them from their pre-activism days all the way until now. And these things just start to overlap. You follow, I want to say 3 main members of the IRA and how things progressed for them, everything that they went through, everything that happened once the ceasefire was established. It's astonishing what these people did, what they went through, what they were willing to go through for what they believed in. I've always tried to learn about the war in Ireland, and I've never been able to retain it because a lot of people just present the facts so dry, and I remember all of this for the most part. It's like over 400 pages, but like, I've got the gist of it. I can recognize key member names now. I have a clear point of view of people who did not want to be under British rule, and I am grateful for that because I've spent a lot of years trying to learn about it and nothing has ever stuck. And even if you don't like nonfiction, I still recommend this because it does not read like a nonfiction book. It really doesn't. I promise you, it is so well done. I truly don't know how this man arranged things the way he did so that it would read kind of like a thriller, and it's amazing. I just need him to write about everything in history so that I can actually latch on to the facts. Okay, this is dark, so skip to the next book if you don't want to hear this, but I'm just going to read you the tiniest tidbit that's not really going to spoil anything. Hughes recalled Dr. Ross, the kind physician who tended to him during his hunger strike and brought him fresh water gathered from a mountain spring. Bobby Sands had never trusted Ross. He called him a mind manipulator, but the doctor's kindness had meant a lot to Hughes. Later he learned that after watching all 10 men die in the hunger strike, Dr. Ross had taken his own life with a shotgun in 1986. So Hughes is one of the main IRA members. There's a lot about hunger strikes from IRA members in this book, and it's followed in detail. It's mind-blowing. And Dr. Hughes is British, but he was very, very kind to all of the IRA prisoners. That part of the book is talking about the crazy effect that going through a war and doing these very extreme things for their cause had on everybody once things were said and done, and from both sides, because Dr. Hughes was not on the side of the IRA, and still watching them suffer like that, it just was too much for him, and he took his own life. And that is such like a side note. There's so much in this book that's such an itty bitty little thing, which maybe will give you a gauge of if this book might be too dark for you. It is such a good book. Is this not the cutest cover? Googly eyes. You're so cute. Glorious Exploits by Ferdia Lennon. I have mixed feelings about this book. I was super excited to read it, and I'm so glad I did. It was fun. It was a good time. Some stuff confuses me. So basically what has happened is Athens tried to invade Sicily, didn't go as planned, and now there's a bunch of Athenian prisoners of war in the quarries in Sicily. And there's a Sicilian who's just obsessed with playwrights, Athenian playwrights. And he decides that he's gonna like toss olives to people who can recite his favorite playwright. And then he gets an idea. Hey, I'm like a miserable, lonely guy. Let's use these prisoners to put on a whole entire play. So they hold auditions. And the people that are selected for the play actually get to eat. So they do. They put on a play with these prisoners, and that's the straight and narrow of the plot. But there are two main characters that are friends. One of them is the one who wanted to put on the play. The other is kind of like, he's like the dumbest friend that's just kind of along for the ride. He's trying to pick up a slave girl at the tavern pretty much for the whole book. I don't know how to say his name. I'm going to say Lampo. Lampo, but he's Italian, so yeah. Anyways, he is annoying. He's annoying. He reminds me of some of my exes, which is embarrassing to say. But he'll be like very emotionally mature 1 second, and then 0.5 seconds later, he is a complete idiotic child. And it just negates everything else that was good a second ago. And I don't mind that he's annoying. I think that was perfect for the role he was playing. I think the characters are very, very good in this book. The ending was super interesting. I liked the ending quite a lot, actually. The thing that confused me is there's a lot of like modern swear words in this book. I do not care if you swear in a book at all. But it didn't fit the vibe with the rest of the book at all. And so it totally jolted me out of the setting every time it happened. And it happens fairly often. I just wish they would have used a different adult vocabulary. Overall, I liked this and I'm happy I read it. It was a good time. It just was a little bit confusing, but it's fun. Like that premise is so fun that it's just worth reading. Glad I read it. Probably won't read it again. Would recommend it to specific people. Little by Edward Carey is actually the first book that I read in August, and it is so much fun. This book is a blast. This is a fictional telling of the life of Madame Tussaud. And it starts when she's a kid. She's an orphan. She goes to stay with this kooky man who makes replica body parts. And they end up living together, and she starts to be his little helper, and they start to make castings of people's heads, and everybody comes to see them, and they're kind of locally famous. But Marie, who is Madame Tussaud, she goes through a lot. She's tiny. She's like under 5 foot, I think. And she's got a very pointy nose, a very pointy chin, and a lot of adults are just constantly telling her how hideous she is and saying that she's a devil because of how she looks. It's pretty bizarre. But this story is the story of her whole life. We follow her all the way to the end. We go on adventures with her. We feel sad things with her. And Edward Carey also does his own artwork, and this book is full of illustrations. And the style of his art just fits the story perfectly, and it made it just an immersive experience for me. Marie Antoinette makes a little cameo in here. It is the story of a woman who went through a lot and never gave up. And I am so happy that she had success in the end because she deserves it. Like, I don't know which parts of this are fiction. I need to do some research into that. But in the story, she's a tough cookie, and she gets the short end of the stick pretty much constantly, and she never stops, and it's really quirky. There are some crazy personalities in here. The writing style is super fun. It is just like, this is just a good time. This book is just a weird good time. That is everything I read in August. I got started on some stuff early for next month, but we're not going to talk about that yet. But I am really happy. I have some new all-time favorites that I will keep forever, and I will read probably every year. And you can't ask for more than that. Next month is the rest of my Halloween spooky season reads. I've got a lot of witch and vampire stuff on my bedside table right now. And I'm reading my first graphic novel at the moment, and it is so much fun. I think I ordered like 4 more graphic novels last night because I'm really enjoying it. But I have some bookbinding I need to go do, so Wish me luck. Bookbinding is hard. But I hope your Labor Day weekend is wonderful. I hope everybody gets to relax at least a little bit. And I'll see you guys in the next video.